website. It was just released today. And you'll be able to kind of get all of your questions answered from there. But again, we're opening in the fall. We're going to have students on campus. Obviously, there's going to be a change of what that looks like, but we are going to have students there. And because of that, our summer orientation will be virtual because we are preparing for that. But it's all going to be the same information given during the summer orientation, and we will have the students become adjusted before classes start in the fall as well. So that's kind of just an overall, again, introduction. Any questions throughout? Don't worry about a pause in conversation or anything like that. You can just continuously write any questions that you might have in the group chat, and then we can say them out loud. And again, if you want to unmute yourself and just chat openly, you can also do that. I'll stop talking for a little bit. Emily, if you want to introduce yourself quick, and then Carolyn can kind of take over from there.
All right. Hi, everybody. So nice to be here with you tonight. My name is Emily. I was just in my senior year and graduated from Niagara, and I was in the academic exploration program for my first 2 years, and I ended up declaring a major in marketing, and I'm from Rochester, New York.
Thanks, Emily, for that. Yeah, we're so happy to have her with us tonight. She's invaluable for what she can contribute to the conversation too, from former student perspective. But hi, everyone. Carolyn Mackey, Director of the Academic Exploration Program. This is an evening that I was looking forward to because a lot of the presentations and video formats of previous meetings and gatherings have been mostly students, and I was thinking about the parents lately and some of their concerns with what may be going on currently, but more importantly about the program and how things are going to work for your son, daughter, loved one, etc. So I'm excited to be meeting with parents tonight to really focus on your needs and hopefully offer a fair amount of information and also words of comfort. So and I'm getting a little message that my internet was a little unstable there, so hopefully I didn't freeze up too much. But again, I really would like to open this up to be a question and answer session for you folks. So again, just like Francesca said, please don't hesitate to unmute, show your face if you care to, or just start sending in those questions to the chat box. So this really can be about what you need tonight. And so it can be from my perspective as well as Emily's, and then anything else Francesca needs to chime in about. So with no further ado, what is it that we can, help you folks with?
Caroline, at what point does the student actually meet you and get involved with the program?
Right, that's a great question. Well, it's always traditionally been that you meet us all, family and students, at the summer orientation sessions. Now that's still going to happen. It's just going to be virtual for that first phase. And then beyond that would be what I can offer otherwise would be any sort of one-on-one meetings that any parent and student alike would care to arrange to have maybe some one-on-one time with me between now and the start of the semester. But basically what happens is that it all gets kicked off with orientation. And a lot of times, a lot of the questions leading up to that would be, understandably, what do we need to do and what information do we need to look for and where do we need to sign up for things, right? Things that are reasonable to be concerned about. And the short answer is that our program prioritizes communication. And so there isn't going to be at any point that you really should not know what's happening, about to happen, will happen. And those are the things that we do communicate, either in person, through email, or otherwise, right? And the otherwise is basically, as of late, the other ways that we're meeting with students and parents and things like that. So that's basically it. That's when it starts, is summer orientation.
Thank you.
Sure. Do you have a follow-up for that? Did that answer with what you were looking for as far as that connection?
Well, yeah, I do have a follow-up. So
Sure.
All we need to do is contact you and set up an appointment and maybe take a ride up to the Ridge and sit down at some point, or is that Is that available to us between now and the start of school?
Well, some of that is, again, we're at the mercy of how it's going to work with all of the things that they're putting in place with protocols for that. So right now, what I would say is that one-on-one could be a virtual meeting automatically,
Okay.
because all of us have not even been really on campus yet ourselves.
Okay.
So I mean, starting tomorrow, quite literally, I can start meeting with parents and students ahead of time, even prior to the orientation session. And that it's easy enough to set up. You could just email me directly and I can work with you about a mutual time that works best. Or even contacting our office coordinator, Michelle Gansworth. And all of this information is easy enough to find at the website. If you go to the Niagara University website and just put in the search box AEP, and you'll end up getting all of our listings as far as contact information.
I know this is all difficult for everyone, but I'll feel better when my son is able to meet you a couple of times, get to know the program, get to know the physicality of it, and that's hard to do virtually.
Right. And Emily's going to be able to maybe attest to what is really important about the program, and as far as how it alleviates a lot of anxiety or anxiousness or concerns that students have for the whole process of figuring out the major that's right for them. Okay, so I that's why this session I thought was really important, because I agree with you. This is all very difficult, and I empathize with parents and students alike with where they are with this. Like if I were in your shoes, I'd be feeling the same way about my daughter or son starting at a university this fall in this sort of environment. And I still look forward to those orientation sessions being in person with a whole, AEP is a large program. Okay, so first of all, your sons, your daughters, your relatives, your loved ones are in good company. They're with the single largest freshman major at the university, and this year is no exception, right? So there's a room full of parents and students, and I love that energy. And I love having that personal connection. And I love having that opportunity to really establish, like, this is where the relationship starts. And as much as I can convey that right now through a virtual session to, alleviate those concerns, right? That we will be doing our darndest to make up for whatever feels like it could potentially be missing with some of this and how it's initially going with some of these virtual sessions and things of that nature. Because that's important. The relationships we build with our advisees in the program are prioritized in our view, right? Deciding the major, helping students decide their major, that is a piece of it, but the bigger piece of our program in particular is the holistic support that we provide students. And that's to help them with all the things that they navigate at the university, right? So it's really all that, again, that is at the top of our list for what students will benefit from in our program. So Emily, maybe you can jump in a little bit about some of your concerns and how you felt the program, alleviated some of those.
Yeah, so when I entered Niagara, my first year, I was just about as lost can be. I really wanted to be a pharmacist at the time, so when I met with my advisor, we set up a schedule of mainly science courses that would lead me on the right track, and I wasn't fully set on it, but meeting with my advisor definitely made me feel more confident in the classes that I was taking, because she was able to give me an idea of the type of professor that was teaching the course, the type of material that we would be going over, give me an idea of the class size that I would be attending, and I was able to meet a lot of the classmates that would be taking these same courses with me. I ended up declaring a major in business, as I said before, so clearly I had a very big career path change, and being able to be an AEP during that process was the most relieving thing that could have happened to me, really, because they know the ins and outs of all the different programs, so they're able to really guide you in the right direction. And I never felt anything less than full support. So I can fully attest that if you're freaking out, like, they will be there to relax you. And whether that's the student or the parent, they're very, like, everybody is great with just making sure that the student feels comforted. And I think once the student feels that comfort, the parents will as well.
Thank you.
I think that's
Sure.
definitely for everybody. obviously AEP, especially because it is with students that aren't 100% sure what they're interested in doing, but that's just the type of environment Niagara definitely is about. So just because I let kind of 2 more people hopped on in here just to say hello to you guys. My name's Francesca. I work in admissions. Carolyn here is the director of AEP, and then Emily obviously is one of the students, actually, unfortunately, a senior that has left us, but she is here to talk about her experience. And now there are 2 questions in the chat, so I'm just going to say those out loud so that we can go off of that.
Yeah, I see the one.
Yes. So let's see. Okay, my daughter has no clue what she wants to do. How do we go about signing her up for classes that will assist her in her eventual career choice?
Right, so the process has already begun with AEP students in the sense that when they are completing their required portal information, right, for when you're signing up and you select an orientation session, and there's the forms that you have to complete and submit, and some are for the university. And for AEP, there's always an additional questionnaire. And this is where students initially identify maybe some majors they have in mind that they want to explore. And again, if your daughter, as you're saying, has no clue and she wasn't even really able to answer that part of the questionnaire easily, that's something we're prepared for. So a little bit of that information gathering is what we use to start initially doing some pre-advisement for. So again, the way it'll work is that we will be taking care of all of this, right? So worrying about how you sign up and how that's all going to happen, that's all part of the system that's in place for getting these things done for every student. And we will be reaching out to all of the students about this process. So again, it usually happens in person at orientation with those registration advisement sessions. And initially, there are some courses that are pre-selected, right? And it's based on some of that information that we gather. But again, to alleviate your concerns, there'll be information coming out from our program about the virtual appointments that students are going to be able to have with advisors or faculty members. So this is happening for the whole university. So what happens is that we'll go through our orientation sessions, and then as soon as those sessions conclude, every student is going to have an opportunity to meet with a faculty member or an academic advisor in AEP, and their schedule will be discussed and reviewed. Right? And so if there are any necessary and potential and possible, so there's a lot of things to look at for this, adjustments to the schedule to be made, then we will handle those as we can and need to. So I assure you, we will be reaching out to families and students in addition to what the university is already communicating, about this process, about getting the fall schedule, because that's usually the single most important concern that students have at orientation. I mean, they complete these surveys, or they have, I should say, orientation. Everyone who attends orientation sessions complete surveys usually at the end if they take the time to do so. And that's some of the data that's been collected. Like, what was your top issue for coming to orientation? And number 1 is usually getting my schedule, and that's understandable, because that's the crux of it, about what's going to be happening in the fall. So the work we'll do with your daughter, though, for connecting all that to a career choice, that's all going to evolve more throughout the fall semester as she starts to come for her individual advisement appointments with her own personally assigned advisor in the program. So every student gets assigned to one advisor, and that's who they work with the entire time. So the first schedule, the first semester, it's not the one that is just so formative that you have to know ahead of time, and it's all then set in stone, and if you don't, you're going to be behind. Sometimes students just need a semester to get the things on the table, the majors on the table that they want to start to explore. So it's just from one student to the next in the program, you might be in a different starting place than others. So that group of students, out of the 3 that I usually describe, the group that has absolutely no idea, the group that has 2 or 3 or more majors identified, how do you explore all of those? And then the group that's heavily leaning in one direction, right? Your daughter falling into that first group, we're prepared for it. You know, we've worked with students in this category plenty of times, and we have strategies that will be able to help her. So a little bit in the beginning is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's my favorite phrase. I'm quoted often for saying it. And it can be a little uncomfortable for students, or they're like, I still don't know. But that's the whole point of our program and what we're here to help students with.
All right, so we just have one more question.
Sure.
That was from the chat. My daughter is having trouble keeping herself busy this summer for obvious reasons, with COVID impacting her ability to work and volunteer. Is there anything you can recommend for the AEP students to do to get ready for the fall? Anything they can do over the summer, pre-work, etc.?
Sure. I mean, Emily might be able to think about this while I'm answering, some of the things that maybe she was doing for her exploring that, she might have taken advantage of or were suggested to her by your AEP advisor. But for now, here's what I would say. I certainly understand, that while we're all at home mostly, and we have some time on our hands, that there feels like, we should be doing something constructive with that time. And I want to keep it simple for students who are waiting to start the AEP process, because I don't want them to feel too overwhelmed. So I think one of the best first steps would be to just do some exploring at the website, right? So if there are some identified majors or some majors that, for everyone that I'm speaking to, that your son or daughter are thinking about, you can easily go to that Niagara University website, and in the search box, drop that major in it, and the results will lead you to a department website. That department website will tell you a lot about the major. It'll tell you, aspects of what you're going to be studying. And then there's going to be all kinds of links. So with that, there would be course listings that if you are, let's say, interested in sociology, you click on that courses link, and every single sociology course that's offered is there in this nice, easy to use drop-down list where you click on it, and then underneath is the course description, right? So that's one example. You could read every single course description that comes under that major. And believe it or not, after a while, students get a sense of, okay, if this were to be something I would major in, this is what I'm going to study from A to Z. So you read one course description after another, and it's piquing your interest a little, oh, that sounds interesting, et cetera, right? Or maybe not. And that's starting to give you some of that baseline information, right? And that's just one link that there is to utilize at that department webpage. There's all kinds of other information, maybe internships that you could look at, certainly all the faculty that are in that department, what you can do with the major. So again, career information that's connected to it. So you could play around with all of those links. There's also student testimonies and all kinds of great things. So I think that's the easiest, most non-stressful way to start the process, because the rest of it is going to be what we do with each student on an individual basis, right? And that's coming from the perspective of how we work with our students in our program, through all the advisors. So again, Emily, maybe you want to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the things that you had done and you're exploring, or maybe if you have a suggestion as well to offer for students this summer.
I definitely agree with everything you just said. I think it's really important to get familiar with the options that will be in front of you once you get to campus. But another thing that was really beneficial for me is I think I almost focused too much on picking my major and not really thinking more deeply on like what things I enjoy about that major, because I was looking at the list and I was like, okay, I have to pick one of these things, like which one's going to be the best. And it was very overwhelming for me. So I kind of tried to break it down a little bit more and think about what things do I enjoy doing. So I'm a very visual learner. So I made lists, like what do I like? And I've always loved helping other people. So that's why I thought about pharmacy, because clearly it's in the health field. So that was like totally where I was going for. And I am going into a helping field, just in a completely different aspect. So you really just have to lay out all of those things. And then I brought those to my advisor and I was like, these are all the things that I find interesting. These are all the things I think I would be good at. These are all the things that I like. how can I incorporate this into a major? And then she was able to be like, okay, so we have these majors, but we also have these majors. So like, let's kind of compare which one do you think would really be best suited for you? And I think that was probably the best thing I could have done, because I wasn't just staring at a list of all of these programs and majors that I wasn't super familiar with. I was focusing more on myself as an individual and learning how to incorporate my individual interests into how I would be interested as a student. So that would be my advice.
Right. No, that's great stuff.
Tell them in the chat what you wanted to know.
So other questions that come to mind, and maybe while someone's thinking about a question they want to ask, or if they're getting ready to type it in the chat box, I know some of the responses sometimes are, no idea about my interests either, as far as a student is concerned, and I get that. It can be a weird thing to just, you're going along as you would understand students moving through high school and heading off to college, and they might not always really be able to articulate what it is that they feel they're interested in. I mean, they might say, well, I like art, or I like this, and they're not always pulling all of that together to what that means with connections to careers and otherwise, right? So sometimes they're just sitting in front of us going, I just don't even know, right? And so there's other things we have that we do with students that will formally assess interests, right? So we use the strong interest inventory, which is a computer assessment that is this great questionnaire, and it's all about likes and dislikes, and pulls together all of this information and then connects it to related careers, and rates a lot of careers offered, suggested in all the interest areas, right? So this is one of the things that we do with our students, to help the process. So that's usually what is considered the fall semester activity, right? So in AEP, every semester, our students complete a semester activity, which is designed to help them be exposed to a little bit more information about a major, about a career, etc. Right? So to add a little more information to the decision-making process. And that gets decided by conversations between the student and the advisor. So it's not like we just say, well, go figure it out, right? We have all these examples of things they could do. We have plenty we can suggest. So we individualize that process as well, and try to really figure out where the student's coming from and where they need to start. So usually the fall semester is the time that everybody just does that interest inventory, because it's the easiest, because it's just automatic, ready to go on a computer, answer questions, get this great 13-page report with all this information about your interests that connects to majors and careers, like I mentioned, and then to job databases to then start researching these careers, right? And it's just the easiest thing to do right off the bat without having to really start sending students off into maybe other environments that they're still trying to warm up to, like going to some of the events that are hosted by the various colleges. They just might not be ready yet for that next step, right? So that's the only time everybody does the exact same thing, but it's a great kickoff, if you will, to getting some focus to those directions, and seeing formally in front of you, your interests and how they can be categorized.
I see this is being recorded. Where can we, my wife couldn't be here, so where can we find this?
Yeah, so everything that, all of our events that we hold on Zoom are recorded, and then they're on our website. So you'll be able to kind of see everything. We have different programs for all of other majors, and kind of all different types of topics. And on our website, there is a section that you can see all of the videos for them.
And that's the General Niagara website?
Yes.
Okay. And where again do you get to see course descriptions? I missed that, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Generally speaking, at every department webpage, when you visit the webpage, if you look to the left, there'll be additional links, right? And so each department webpage is a little different from one another, right? So some of them, it'll be right there, it'll say courses. And if it doesn't, then it's usually under student information or academic information. So sometimes you have to click maybe one extra, link or two. But generally speaking, it's easy enough to find once you're at that web page.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then it'll just take a second to load up. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and definitely use the admissions counselors to your advantage. All of us obviously we all work with specific students from specific areas. So obviously, like I mentioned, I work from students with students from Rochester. So they can always email us or text us. We always text our students, and we can send you the PDF version of those course descriptions as well. So either way works for us. So again, this is a very open Q&A. If you have questions, you can say it in the chat out loud. Bring on your questions for sure.
I missed the beginning questions. Kevin, do you have a question?
So they explain what the thing is, the program.
Yeah, but we missed that. So she said how to get to the video.
So the thing is over.
If you have any questions, we can definitely answer those. And then, like I said, anything that has happened that you missed, we obviously this is recorded, so you'll be able to see it. But if you have any questions, even if we're a little bit repetitive, that's okay. You can just go ahead and ask whatever questions that you might have.
So we had audio problems. So we missed the beginning.
That's okay.
And I'm just waiting for my son to come back. But because he thought he had his major, picked out, but then, he's going through this. I'm not sure that's really what I want to do. So I thought this would be, we thought this would be good for him since he's kind of now not sure, because he thought he wanted to major in communication and media studies.
Okay.
But then he has some other interests as well. And so what we didn't hear, the part that we missed, where you probably explained like what the process is, like when you go to register, like for classes, do you just sign up for, you just select AEP as your, like, how does that process work?
Sure. So first and foremost, if your son, as you said, right? Your son's going to be attending Niagara in the fall. So if he's already coming in declared in a major, then he would be part of the registration process that will happen for that major. So now if he isn't exactly sure that he does want to enter this fall as a declared student and feels as though, he wants to choose to switch to AEP, then you're simply contacting the admissions office for a change in major. And that way we'll get him into the right spot, which would be to be with us.
Okay.
And then our outreach is going to be automatic as far as making sure he has a schedule and then connecting with him about reviewing that schedule and having any of his questions answered regarding it before the fall starts. But again, if he's heavily leaning towards communications, that's fine. That's something we can help him with. And if he's comparing it to a couple other things like, well, I feel like it could be communications, but maybe this or that. That's again, that category of student that's maybe kicking around more than one major automatically, even if one is in the lead. So we're still going to make sure that he would be in step with communications and as well get to explore and understand maybe the other majors he's considering simultaneously, so that no matter what, if he still ends up communications, we're just going to send him right back. So it's really just a holding pattern. Like nobody graduates from Niagara from the AEP program. It's not a major to graduate in. It's just we have students for up to 4 semesters if they choose to be with us that long to figure things out. But as soon as you know and you're ready to declare, then we take care of that and we get students right into the major as smooth as a transition as possible. So here's the last thing that I'll say about it. The benefit is, even if he came to be with us for about 1 semester, right, to figure some things out or just to get some more information, he's going to get a very comprehensive understanding about the major he's about to declare. And again, maybe Emily can attest to this as far as what are the courses that he needs to complete for that major. If he's bringing in transfer credit, where is that all landing and requirements that are being fulfilled? What is his 4-year plan? And let me emphasize that again. 4-year plan. All of our advisement and planning that we do with students, we do it in a 4-year time frame for graduation. And if there's anything that's falling outside of that, it's for reasons that maybe it's a major that does require a couple extra courses. Maybe it's a student who has ambitions of being a double major and there's extra coursework that way. But our goal is to always have students in step for that type of graduation time frame, even if they, were to come in declared, right? So, and that's with careful advisement. So what I'm saying is he would understand all of that before leaving us. And in short, why that's important to us is because that's how we feel we empower students. We want them to understand their degree program so that they're not just taking things because, hey, this advisor told me so. They understand why that advisor is telling them these are the courses you need to take. This is what you need this semester. This is what you're going to need in the long run, right? And then that's the best working relationship because then a student really knows what they need to complete, right? And there's no surprises at the end. Or as I call them, the higher ed horror stories, where somebody thinks they're on time for graduating and then lo and behold, they go for their senior check and they find out they're actually not on time. They have courses to make up and now they're in this time crunch, right? We don't want anything like that happening with our students. And that's true of all advisement at Niagara, to tell you the truth. And that's one of the benefits, I believe, of our institution, which in this day and age right now, with the type of relationships I think students will benefit from with what we're all dealing with, those close working relationships are ideal. So, Emily, maybe you can say a bit about what you felt was your education about your degree program that you received while you were with us.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, I started out on the science track. I was taking a lot of biology courses and I ultimately declared a degree in marketing. So kind of a big course shift. And I'm pretty sure every advisement meeting that I walked out of, my advisor was either giving me paperwork because she was writing everything down as we were going so I could visually see my, like Carolyn mentioned, the 4-year plan. Like she was making sure that I was comfortable walking out of that office every day. And if she wasn't giving me papers, she was typing up an email to me as we were meeting, and then she would send it as I walked out the door so that when I left, I always had evidence of everything we discussed, making sure that I was confident in what we had planned and everything was going to be great. And yeah, I basically just emphasizing everything that she just said. So your students will definitely be comfortable with whatever it is that they're deciding, and the advisors make sure of that. So I would not have any hesitation walking back into that office to this day. And I actually spent all 4 of the semesters in the AEP program and continued to meet with my advisor up until we went off campus in my senior year. So I would meet with my marketing advisor, who was amazing, but then I would bring everything we talked about back to my AEP advisor, and I was like, are you sure this is okay? Like, can I do this? And they were like, yes, like, it's going to be okay. I was like, all right, fine. So.
No, those are great points that you added, Emily. Thank you, because that is true. We have students who are leaving sometimes with an armful of information, and there could be some sessions when students are looking at a lot of directions that they're walking out with, let's say, 5 curriculum cards and all these other documents. And I say to them, listen, just put them in a folder, take a breather for 24 hours, and then when you come back, we're going to be going over it again. So it's just repetition is the greatest teacher. So what Emily is also referring to is that every appointment that you're coming to at AEP, a lot of this information is getting repeated and gone over again because it's too much to take in one appointment and sometimes 2 appointments, right? So we move through things at the pace that we will feel that students, are really going to benefit from it. So it's not meant to overwhelm, but we certainly like to make sure we're thorough. So other questions that come to mind from our wonderful attendees here.
Again, just the logistics too. Like Carolyn had mentioned, you can if your student right now is declared and you're thinking AEP is more the route that you're looking into, or your student is looking into, just reach out to your admissions counselor and you'll be able to get switched. Probably before our SUMO, which is our summer orientation, would be best, just so that you can really get the ball rolling during orientation with the AEP program. So all you have to do is reach out to your counselor and you'll be able to make that switch before you start SUMO.
Yeah, right. And to also reiterate, it's not a hard sell. So if it's not now and it is something that down the road a student still changes their mind about, students join us all the time throughout the academic years, and even right up until like, let's say there'd be one semester left, like joining us in fall of their sophomore year, right? And then the other option is also consultations. So students who might just want to come for a couple of chats and not necessarily formally switch, right? So whatever helps the student the most, we're team players. We're there just to really meet the needs of the student.
It looks like there is another question in the chat. I believe I read something about clubs that paired with careers. Can you touch on those and how they operate?
Sure, right. And, you know, again, there might be some things that Emily participated in as well, but what I can tell you is that there are academic clubs, right? So there are ones that are associated with a lot of the majors that are at Niagara. And they're as simple as, you know, just the initial information about joining them as far as when they're meeting and how often that might be. But those are things that students really benefit from, getting some additional information about their major and then connecting it to careers and even learning some great professional skills. So some are can be more formal than others, like the ones that fall under hospitality or the business departments. But there's lots of opportunities with clubs and activities for students to participate in. And sometimes it's not always something that might be academic based. Like, you know, there's a TV station and a radio station. So for that communications major that was mentioned, these are some great things for students to get involved in and like have their own radio show, right? And so get some experience of what it's like to be in that area of communications. Or some of the TV studio work, the students that do in front of the camera or behind the camera, or they're doing the video editing, right? So there's all kinds of great opportunities at the university that students can get involved in. So how they operate would be a matter of, I wouldn't be able to take you through every single one because it would be an exhausting list of information. But this is, again, a bit of that holistic support that I was mentioning earlier in AEP. Dialoguing with a student who mentions that this might be something they'd like to do, or even we would suggest it as, hey, this would probably be something interesting for you, or something you might want to explore or look into possibly joining, right? And so we're going to get students connected to that opportunity so that they're not running around campus, not knowing where to find things or who to speak to about it, right? So we're there to, you know, facilitate those connections as well. So again, that's back to that holistic support. But Emily, I'm not sure if there's something you want to contribute about that as well, or other friends and students you knew of that had some of these opportunities.
Yeah, I think joining clubs that are paired to your major is very important. And one of the best aspects of that is you're able to meet other students that are going through the same program as you. So like something that my friends and I always say is that when you're in college specifically, you have your friends that you get lunch with, you do things with, but then you have your major friends who you do homework with, you study with, you have class with, two completely different groups of friends. But your major friends are so important because those are the friends that help get you through your 4 years. You have late nights in the library together and you go to those club meetings together, you go over your study guides together before an exam, you go to your professor's office together so you have a buddy. So joining those clubs is a really great way to make those major friends a little bit quicker so that you're not just sitting in class with a bunch of random students, you're sitting in class with people that you can consider a friend. And I think that will help you succeed, help a student succeed a little bit more as well.
Right. Yeah, great point, Emily, because just again, to just capitalize on what she said, making a connection. So that is really beneficial to any student in any major at our university, feeling connected to your university, right? So, you know, higher education statistics will say that if students can identify one person that they feel connected to at an institution, and I said one, not a whole posse of individuals, that the likelihood of retaining them and graduating them, right, it goes up exponentially. So it's just feeling connected to an institution in one way, shape, or form. That could be with a faculty member, that could be through a club or a friend, like Emily mentioned, that you make that's either personal or in a major, right? So for students who maybe view themselves as not the most social individuals. So making a lot of personal friends is a little overwhelming to them, or something that's not really even how they're hardwired. Like they just have one or two really good friends and that works for them, right? Connecting with other students and majors that they might meet through an academic club, that might be a better environment, a more supportive way for them to go about and find that connection. You know, aside from the ones that we're just always going to be there and offering on a regular basis, which is every faculty member, every administrator that's there at that university, that's just waiting half the time, aside from doing their jobs, mind you, just waiting for an opportunity to connect with a student, and ones that we will initiate. So we don't just necessarily sit back, right? So the whole point of me getting out of the office half the time and going and eating in the dining hall where all the students are eating half the time is just to get out there and be able to walk through that dining hall and say hello to students, whether they're in my program or not, and just strike up a conversation with the student who's in front of me or behind me waiting in line for the same food that we're getting, right? So these are the things that I do, and that's just one little story out of the thousands of stories that all of us could tell at the university. And again, that's what's special, you know, about Niagara, and that makes us different, right? And stand out for those attributes.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I like
Yeah.
Emily's thought about taking a buddy in to go see that evil professor. There's courage in numbers. I like that.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions that come up?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to say like final call, but.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of opportunities to continue asking questions as they pop up. Like I mentioned, all of our admissions counselors, your student has a specific person they can reach out to. Obviously, Carolyn is open to any questions that come after this as well. And then, like I mentioned before, a lot of specific details have been released about what our fall semester is going to be looking like from our president. On our website, the top banner, that's I think orange, is all about updates on COVID and the fall. And again, that was released today. So that might answer a lot of your questions. And the letter will be sent out to each deposited student as well. So again, we're looking forward to the fall. We are going to be seeing all your students on campus, and we're really excited about it. Obviously, all safety precautions are going to be fully intact, but we're really looking forward to it. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. It was, I think, very beneficial to learn some more information, obviously, about AEP, and thank you to Carolyn and Emily for that as well.
Yeah, it looks like most of you are getting in our chat. So we appreciate your kind words. Truly, it means a lot to us. So
Awesome.
again, looking forward to meeting everybody.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good rest of your night.